Thank you, James, and good morning, everyone. Always good to be with you. Well, we're going to have a panel discussion for a few minutes relating to some proposed bylaw changes that are being put forth by the board of directors. A few wonderful members have graciously volunteered to participate in this panel discussion. So I'm going to invite them to come forward. Ed Falk and Brian Pelkey and Connie Bouvet. And we're also waiting on Terry Wollum and Terry Eccles-Pettit. Have either of you arrived? Okay. If you could folks see Terry Wollum or Terry Eccles-Pettit, make sure that they get over and mic'd up and up here on the stage. Don't be shy about calling them out. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our discussion. All of you in your materials when you came in this morning, you should have a printout of the proposed bylaw changes. And they're primarily in Article 11.1. The proposed changes are going to structure the election of officers. Currently, the officers are being elected by the general membership, and the proposed change is going to have those officers elected by the board of directors. And that's the reason that we wanted to have this discussion, so that the panelists can help explain the reasons for the proposal, and then panelists and also audience members, to the extent that you have any questions, objections. I'm a lawyer, right? So that's what I always want to say. If you have an objection, you just stand up and say objection. All joking aside, if you have any questions or comments, either for or against, during this discussion, we welcome your insight and participation this morning. I'm confident that these folks are familiar to most or all of you. I'm going to go ahead and start with Ed Falk. Ed, tell us some of the concerns that you're seeing in the association.
Well, I'd like to start with saying it's nice to be sitting next to a lawyer and I'm not in a deposition. Isn't that great, folks? So
I think we should put this man under oath.
I'd like to see more member involvement in CCAR. Needless to say, that is a concern being faced by associations everywhere. This is particularly true each year when it comes to time to elect new officers and directors. One of the biggest challenges we face included getting knowledgeable volunteers to apply for positions. Those that have served on our nominating committee have had to deal with this challenge. Thus, we have worked at pinpointing the issues, Roy.
Gotcha. You know, I'm involved in a number of associations. I imagine that many of you and our general membership are as well. I think that's a common challenge. And our association is no different. There was something regarding a presidential advisory group that was looking into this issue of maybe wanting to energize the association and have more member involvement. Would you tell us about that? I believe you were part of it.
Absolutely. I was requested to be a member of the PAG, Presidential Advisory Group, and I agreed to do so because my experience has taught me that the strength of any organization lies with the leadership team. There are some new faces in the room, so I'd just like to take a little bit of time and revisit how we're structured. Our association is a non-for-profit that is run by a volunteer board of directors. Within that structure, there is an executive committee comprised of the president, president-elect, immediate past president, secretary, and treasurer. Ideally, and as our policy states, those positions require experience derived from time served as a director and time with experience obtained when serving on a committee. In the past few years, we have faced some challenges filling some of the vacancies left by either a director moving into an executive position or facing lifestyle changes requiring they prioritize their energy elsewhere. The PAG was formed not only to access what is working and what needs to be updated, but to also get out in front of these issues, to empower our members by giving them knowledge and tools necessary to pursue a leadership position. We've had a series of meetings in which we defined what the biggest concern of possible candidates for leadership positions were. We analyzed similar organizational structures, including the National Association of Realtors, the Washington Association of Realtors, and we even went so far as to do a deep dive on Chamber of Commerce organizations. This allowed us to come up with a solution that utilizes some of the most effective bylaws and policies that these organizations use. One of the biggest concerns that we exposed early on was that many of our members did not understand the leadership process. Not only how to become a leader, but what gains they made personally and professionally by running for a director's position. Those that were already directors were reluctant to run for an executive position for various reasons, which included everything from time commitments to concerns of winning or losing races based on the size of offices. And we even had some individuals that had a fear of public speaking. After much deliberation, our PAG memorialized the following proposed solutions for our membership consideration. And the PAG came up with 7 points that we'd like to share today. And I'm going to run through those. So the first one, adopt the leadership track infographics and utilize them to educate members and member leaders. The rationale behind this: the PAG found that there was confusion on the leadership track even among current leaders. They determined a simple infographic would serve as an easy way to explain the process and educate both current leaders and members of our board of realtors. And I believe you have a copy of that infographic on your table. If not, we do have it. Yeah, on the screen, but I think there's a copy on the table too. Secondly, number 2, nominating committee. Each year, the nomination committee should continue to put forth the call to the general membership for candidates to the board of directors. Each year, the nomination committee should continue to put forth the call to the committee chairs and committee members for candidates to the board of directors. The rationale on this: the PAG finds no reason to change the process the nominating committee currently operates from. It is determined that the logistical progression of leadership comes forth from members that have served on committees, but also must ensure that the general membership is aware of the elections and have the right to run from the floor as laid out in our bylaws. Each year, number 3, each year nominees should be required to take a 1-hour board orientation before they can run. The rationale: the PAG found that director failure often stemmed from appointed directors not fully understanding what was going on and where they were going. Further discussion concluded that the appointees were unprepared. Many did not serve on a committee or board prior to serving on CCAR board of directors. By hosting an informal luncheon-style meeting, similar to the board orientation currently given, the PAG believes that all candidates will have a deeper understanding of CCAR. What is expected and what we can offer in return will increase our retention rates among board members. A special note: other associations were interviewed on their best practice elections for onboarding, retention, offboarding. During the process, boards that had a board orientation program had a better retention rate in general. Number 4, create the following positions. Advisors can be past chairs and committee members that have served the committee for as long as our policy allowed. Advisors will not be allowed to vote on motions, but can offer their wisdom and insight to those that will be voting. Advisors only retain the title if they continue to attend committee meetings and are still held to the attendance policy. The Professional Standards Committee will allow advisors to serve on panels if they attend committee meetings and required training. The second one was our trustees. Past presidents of CCAR will be given the title of trustee and can be called upon to advise CCAR or stand in as dignitaries for events. They can also be called upon by the president for advice or to serve on a presidential advisory group. The awards committee and nomination committee. Possible mentoring for new leaders could be a future option. The rationale behind this: the PAG found that we were not only struggling with getting volunteer leaders, but also keeping the wisdom and history our past leaders could offer. By creating these positions, we can start to retain the talents they offer and the wisdom they have. Number 5, after elections, any newly elected or appointed board member will be required to receive training in parliamentary procedure. The PAG also suggests extending the training to committee chairs and vice chairs. Rationale: understanding parliamentary procedure, we are on the same page and we can be confident in their knowledge when attending meetings. Number 6, to put forth the following bylaw changes for a vote to the general membership. That falls under 11.1. Officers. The elected officers of the association shall be a president-elect, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, and the immediate past president. Officers shall be elected by the board of directors for terms of 1 year, and aforementioned officers shall constitute the executive committee of the board of directors. No amendment under these bylaws in the number or type of offices shall have the effect of shortening the term of any incumbent officer. The rationale: the PAG found, after reviewing models as set forth by the Washington Realtors and the National Association of Realtors, that a best practice would be to have the president, president-elect, vice president, secretary, and treasurer elected by the board of directors directly, as opposed to by the general membership. This will emphasize the importance of drawing leadership from those currently working within the board and will produce greater stability and vetting when selecting the executive committee. The PAG also found that the general membership might misunderstand or be confused that there were uncontested positions due to the requirements as laid out in the following bylaws. Bylaw 11.2.2, which states no person shall be eligible for the office of president of the association who has not first held the office of president-elect. Bylaw 11.2.3, which states, upon completion of his or her term in office, the president-elect shall succeed automatically to the office of president for the next association year. By simplifying the process as much as possible, the PAG believes it would encourage more directors to run for an executive committee. It would also ensure that CCAR is not currently, it would also ensure that CCAR is not inaccurately accused of having a fixed election when certain positions do not have contested races. And number 7, which is really quick, we'd like to offer optional public speaking training. The rationale: the PAG finds that offering an optional training in public speaking could encourage more candidates to run for a president's position.
All right, thank you, Ed. Well, the PAG was very busy, weren't they?
That was a 6-month process, by the way.
That was a lot of people. And it sounds like a lot when Ed, as you try to summarize your findings, but their work and their effort and their insight and really their concern for the association in helping us maintain a level of highly qualified candidates who are interested in putting in the work to run the association and moving forward is very much appreciated. And so thank you for your effort on that. I guess just to cut to the chase on it, Ed, are you speaking in favor? There's a key bylaw change that's coming out of this presidential advisory group's findings, and that key change is adjusting the way that the officers are elected. Instead of putting it out to the general membership for a vote every year, to have the vote done by the board. And would you speak in favor of that with these recommendations?
Absolutely. I think, having looked at the National Association of Realtors, the Washington Association of Realtors, and in-depth discussions, we feel this is going to help bring stability and actually bring quality individuals into leadership roles.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. So I've given you a little bit of a highlight of what we're currently doing in terms of electing the officers. I'm going to turn to you, Connie. And by the way, welcome to Terry Eccles-Petta. We're very glad you made it. I was getting nervous.
Me too.
Connie, remind us, as I've said very generally, the officers are currently elected in our structure by a vote of the association. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, I'm going to read how things currently are. Every year in August, the nominating committee is appointed by the president and approved by the board of directors. It's made up of no less than 5 members, and it's chaired by the immediate past president. At least 2 members on the nominating committee need to be past presidents, and 2 need to be current directors or committee chairs. No brokerage company can hold a majority on the nominating committee. They call for officer and director nominations via the newsletter, email, association meetings, our website, and through committee chairs and liaisons. The nominating committee then determines eligibility and adds qualified members to the slate of candidates running for elections. What really ends up happening is the nominating committee meets and is given a list of active volunteers serving on committees and board of directors. Since we rarely have applications, the nominating committee breaks out their phones and start calling the names on those lists, reaching out to ask if they would be interested, explaining the benefits, the time commitments, and answering all questions. They've put together a list of candidates. Some of those are fairly easy. For instance, the president-elect is set to go into the president position. The president is set to go into the immediate past president position, and the vice president is ideally set to go into the president-elect. On occasion, the treasurer or secretary is considered for the president-elect position. Once the slate is announced, members can log in to the member portal and vote by the next membership meeting in October. We only need 5% of the members to vote, but we have challenges on uncontested positions. Many members think that because the president-elect and the immediate past president are uncontested, which is due to the fact they were already voted into the leadership legacy and they meet the bylaws and policies to fulfill those positions, that they are fixed elections and that the vote does not matter. But we need 5% for all positions, not just the contested director positions. And it's hard to believe that we have challenges getting 97 people to vote for all positions, but we do.
My suspicion is that the 5% of members who are voting are probably in this room, so we may be talking to the choir a little bit. That's a fairly low bar, 5%, and thanks to all of you for being among those voters. You know, I work with a lot of homeowner associations, and they require a much higher percentage of activity in terms of even approving a budget, having a quorum. A 5% minimum is the smallest that I've ever seen in any association that I've worked with, and that's the minimum. And I think, Connie, what you're saying is even with that low bar, we're just having difficulty getting people elected. What has the association done historically when you don't have the 5%? Are there emails, phone calls? How are you approaching it?
I think there's been a lot of phone calls to try to drum up some interest for people to run for offices. And there's a lot of people that have, I know myself, I was appointed as a board of director. That's how I got involved in being on the board of directors. And I'll say I didn't really know what I was doing. I sat for the first year and kind of sat back and wasn't sure what to say or what to do. So I think just what was being presented will really help as far as the leadership with some tough decisions that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years as far as how our industry is, direction our industry is going.
Excellent, thank you, and I appreciate your service. So how long have you been a board member?
I think this is my 3rd year.
3 years, okay. And you felt like in the beginning, it took a little bit of time to get your sea legs underneath you?
I totally did, and with just how the meetings were run and not trying to overstep people and having questions or trying to give your input on things, you just kind of sat back and tried to take it all in and didn't feel like I was really contributing or doing too much. It took me, year 2 and getting more involved to really understand what was going on with the association.
Excellent, thank you. Interesting insight, Ed.
So I would, James and I had a learning lesson this year too. We had a vacancy position that came up and we needed to interview a couple people. So we met a young lady for coffee, sat down, interviewed her, and then we both felt that she would be a good fit for our association and could bring a lot to the table going forward. Having said that, what we learned was we hadn't done a good job of educating her on what the board was about and the benefits both ways, because it really does. It goes both ways. So we did that, and then we said, go home, talk to your family, and then if you have questions, come back to us, because family comes first. And she did that. And she agreed to come on board. And I think I speak for our entire group that she is an asset. So we learned a great deal from that. And out of that, we decided to do the PAG. So that's how that all got started.
Gotcha. I'm wondering if there are any questions or comments from any of the audience members. Yes, sir.
It would seem you want to change it to the board electing the officers, right? I guess it's the timing of that vote, because it also happens at about the same time as you're putting up a new board. So does it happen before or as we have the new board members?
Well, there are a couple things that come to play. First of all, board positions, they don't all expire at the same time. They're spread out over a period of time. So we know in advance when we need to find qualified individuals to step into board positions. One of the key things behind all of this is trying to give more stability to our association leadership. And that's, again, not to overstate it, but when we really looked at Washington Realtors and National Association of Realtors, and we had discussions with them in DC, Chicago, we found that this is a pretty good move forward. The other thing I'd like to say, there's a wealth of talent in this room. We have past presidents, and we got a couple of them sitting right down here that I admire. They have done great things in their tenure in leadership for this association. And it just kind of amazes me that we tend to forget about them sometimes. So part of this is to get them back in the loop because they're a wealth of knowledge. They have a great commitment to our association. So I think that I'm looking forward to working closely with them, and I think the bylaw changes will help promote that.
Gotcha. And the reality is we're still going to have a need for people to run for the board of directors. So all the directors, it's just the pool of candidates for the officer positions would then be pulled from people who have been in the trenches with boots on the ground perspective and inner workings of the association and the needs of it. And I think that addresses a little bit, Connie, of what you were mentioning earlier. Look, I wanted to be a contributing member, but I sat on the board for a year, figuring out the processes and the committees and the current bylaw structure and what have you. So thank you for your comment on it. So we'll always need people running for those positions, but the idea would be that those folks who are running for the board positions, if they know that they want to be an officer and hold that opportunity, they're going to start at a board level. And a lot of times, they're going to be people who have already been serving on one subcommittee. They're going to be people who have a real interest in working and being a community leader as part of this organization. Brian, as we speak regarding experience and leadership, one question I'd have for you on this panel, did you have experience in the association, maybe on a committee, prior to becoming a director and ultimately a president?
Yes, I did. I was asked to be on a committee first, Government Affairs Committee, back in 2013. And shortly thereafter, I was encouraged, actually by this lovely lady right here, who was president at the time, to run for board of directors. And of course, what I said at that time was what everybody usually does say. I said to Terry, "What? I can't do that. I don't know anything. No, I'm not qualified. I'm not ready." And which, of course, and I've asked, and coming up the line, I've done the same thing, asked people to run for board of directors, and I get the exact same response. So some of the things that are being proposed here by the PAG will help with that, kind of educate how the board works and give people a little more confidence to step up. But yes, I did do a committee first before I was asked to to run for board of directors in 2014. And of course, then I got more involved, and in 2017, I was the president of this.
Gotcha. Thank you for your service, too. As we talk regarding that educational process and what have you, would you what are your comments in terms of the bylaw changes that we're proposing, and primarily electing officers from the board of directors? Would you be in favor of that? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you view it as, hey, we're disenfranchising the general membership of their voting opportunity? How do you view it?
No, I support it. Again, just to clarify, I think you did a little bit ago, but I want to say it again, that this proposal is just for the executive committee to be voted on now by the board of directors. The director positions will still be voted on by the general membership. So that's that. Yeah, I support it because of the fact that it's now going to give some educational pieces to those that are interested in running for board of directors and give them a little more, not just confidence in running, but just knowing a little bit more about what goes on when they actually are sitting on the board of directors for the first year. Because I will say, and I agree 100%, that first year, you're just sitting back learning how this all works on the board of directors the first year. I think this proposal will help make it a little bit more such that when they're right out the gate, you know a little bit more what's going on in the beginning.
So Connie's experience is not an indictment. It's fairly common, it's usual. And we're trying to get a system where people are up and running at the beginning on day one for their new opportunity. All right, thank you, Brian, appreciate that. Now, I have not asked Terry Eccles-Pettit what her views are of the changes, and so I'm very curious, just as all of you are, to see what she has to say. So Terry, what are your comments?
I think they're very, very valid. And I think that we've come to a place where we need to make some changes. We have grown, and I think we're having a few growing pains in the leadership field. I, too, was a little unsure. Vern Harriet is the culprit who got me involved in the day. And I came in with a whole lot of ideas and learned really quickly in that first year that we have a system and we have to learn things and make things happen slowly amidst our association. So, yeah, I think the learning curve is huge, more of a bullseye, as it were.
Appreciate your comments, Terry. I've never known you to be uncertain about anything, so that's a significant admission.
Some things are just facts.
Any other comments? Do any of you have, again, objections, questions? Yes, ma'am.
That if we've been in the industry a long time and we are in an office where we have a lot of newbies, invite them to come to, like I'm in diversity, and I really learned so much that I thought I knew. And I think if we invite them to be our guests or something like that, it may encourage the new group coming up to really get involved. It's what you give, that's what you get. And so that, the more you give, the more you're going to get the advantages. So I'm just challenging everyone that's been in the industry. I don't know I've been in the industry 29 years, but I've got somebody that wants to join diversity now. She wasn't aware that it was there. And I just think it's something that we, as a group, if we work together, we might be able to get a lot more filling the
Here.
Yeah.
Valid insight. Thank you. We got time for just a couple more comments. Any other questions or comments regarding it? We appreciate all of our panelists. I'll just tell you in closing on this portion, I think that it's a good move. My initial read of it is I was concerned, as you might be as well, that how would the membership view this in terms of voting, because that is so important. But I think in terms of the experience that people have, and they have already run, they have already gotten good experience and aware of the issues facing the association. They join the board, and then they decide, look, I want to be on the executive team, and they begin making effort to get into one of those positions. I think it's a good move that will benefit the association. I think that this change as a whole brings the association in line with now how most, if not all, organizations that I'm aware of when it comes to electing board members officers in the corporate world as well as in nonprofit organizations. So I think it's a good move. Ultimately, that'll be for you to determine as you vote on these bylaw proposals. But thank you all for those who had comments and for all of you for your insight. Any parting words before we conclude?
Yeah, I just one. Everybody knows me. I like to talk. Dale Chumley, past president, CCAR. He's our current president for the Washington Association of Realtors. Very active. Dale, thanks for being here.